Okay. Yeah. The thing is that class is quite big. In C4D class is also a bit compact, so it is easier to get lectures recorded. Two things it will serve. First, you can read the lectures at your own pace and at convenience when a class is getting recorded. So this practice is carried out during post-COVID session, and it is also influenced during the COVID period, the practices during the COVID period. Okay, hence it will, if you are serious enough about the substance and content of the course, so definitely you will get more from the lectures. And most of the time it will also give a kind of record, because even if I say something, utter something in class, attention span is not that equal throughout the class of everyone. So everyone's attention span is different, and everyone's attention span also at times is not equal, right? And hence it is also, it is, it will be useful. I think that it will be useful for you, because you can go through it at your own pace. Okay, so some information which you could not record during the class and could not take the note, you can even go and see and look through in the lectures. Okay, now you see how new media, as I have been telling you about the new media, how new media is new. First, it has created new textual experiences with the help of new artifacts like audiovisual sites, with the help of, you see, that narrated slideshow, with the help of quiz and the survey, with the help of interactive links, it has created new textual experiences, unlike the traditional media. Secondly, how new media is new? Because it has created a relationship between producers and consumers, and that's how it is new. Because earlier that relationship was not built, because traditional media is a highly non-interactive. Now they have incorporated the interactive features, but traditional media has been highly non-interactive, and they were highly centralized. As I have already told you, that if you look at the traditional media, you do have a setup, and that is quite hierarchical, right? It has a formal organization, it is highly commercialized, and traditional media or mainstream media, excluding the folk media, is also publicly funded or even commercialized, privately funded. So as it is publicly funded or privately funded, it has got legitimacy in its existence by the public. So it has built the trust in the public. Right. So in that way, if you look at the traditional media or mainstream media, it is different from new media altogether. And that's how also it creates a new relationship with the audience. How it has created new relationship with the audience, if it's a new media, it is different from the traditional media, because it is almost a non-entity. New media, you see, who are using the new media, like citizen journalists, alternative journalists, you talk about civic journalists nowadays. So they are almost non-entity, they are considered as a non-entity, and their, you see, their rigor, their effort is also not even legitimized, not regarded, okay, not considered as something worthy by the mainstream journalists. But now you see, actually, there is a tag of war, and this tag of war has actually going in favor of new media journalists and so-called citizen journalists. We are looking for citizen journalists nowadays because of its developmental role. Okay, citizen journalism has a role in this development. Even if you look at this alternative journalism, we're talking about the role of advocacy, has a role in development. And hence, we can actually see a kind of reverse dynamics in understanding the relation between the media and the audience. So, new media has created a new relationship between the producer and the consumer. Producer means the media organization, consumer means we, the audiences, the readers, the users. Right. In that way, new media is distinct from old media, and perhaps you have got a new definition of new media. Then you see new media, when we have to understand new media is different from old media, just because it is focusing more on privacy, but at the same time, it provides some of the dilemma related to privacy. Right. So that is also another definition. What is there? There are different definitions I have provided. If I miss someone also, you go through this PowerPoint. Okay. So if it is there, suppose we talk about new media is different from old media by the degree of privacy. So when we see by the degree of privacy, new media is different from old media, right? So you see traditional media has protected privacy. You say that it is established to protect due cognizance, in the sense it recognize or acknowledgement to the very basic right of the citizen. When we say privacy, privacy is a very important, it's a fundamental right of the citizen. It is also incorporated in the right to liberty, right to life and liberty in section 21, article 21 of Indian constitution. So it is our constitutional right. It is incorporated in right to life and right to liberty under Article 21. So privacy is constitutional right. And new media, let me tell you, it talks about privacy, but at the same time, it has actually taken away our privacy. Okay, it is said that we are no longer private in new media environment, but traditional media protected privacy. It actually respect traditional media, mainstream media respect the realm of privacy of the individual, but new media does not respect the realm. It invades our private spheres. So if you talk about this private sphere, how it has invaded, because it has generated some of the active control, but active control is not there that much, not there with the citizens or the users. When you say active control, what is active control? Active control is there with all the network technologies. All the network technologies, mobile phone, smartphone is a network technologies. It has provided us different outlet, and through which we can network with others, organization, people, like-minded friends, with business, right? So it is a network technology. So it is also a new media. Phone is a new media. At the same time, we have that television. Sorry, interactive TV. Interactive TV is also a new media. Okay. So, but you see television, earlier television, which is not interactive. Television per se, the machine, the physical outlet is non-interactive, and that is not a, you see, not a new media. That is a traditional mainstream outlet. But I'm not talking about a media. This is basically a channel, television as a channel. Yeah, media as an outlet. It was not a, you see, not at all new. In the sense, it doesn't have that interactivity. Now you say it has, new media has taken our privacy. And if you look at privacy, privacy can be understood from the point of view of, you see, privacy of information, privacy of communication, privacy of behavior, and privacy in terms of text. Okay, now what is privacy? Privacy is a word which is derived from the Latin word that is called privatus. You know, that is secluded from the rest. That means separated from the rest. So are you, has this network technology, one network technology or two network technologies, provided you that space that you can seclude yourself or separate yourself from the rest? No, because network, the dynamics of network technology is that it will try to create more and more connections and interactivity. It will won't let you live a very separate life or excluded, secluded life. Okay, hence you see it has taken away our privacy, and that is one dimension how new media is different from traditional media. So a media which has already taken away our privacy is also a new media, you say. And privacy, when we discuss about privacy, we will have separate class for privacy. Privacy can be discussed in terms of your personal behavior. Privacy can be discussed in terms of the text which you communicate. So we cannot be private in a social networking site, because at times we feel that this is a site where we can build solidarity with other like-minded people, and we also get very tempted to disclose some of the information in social media, if you see. And why you feel tempted to disclose information. And a survey also said that female and even the women are more inclined to disclose information in social network than men, that male members. So they are more inclined, that is a survey, that's an empirical study, has said that women are more inclined to disclose information in social networking site than than male or men members. So why? Why it is so? Just because they are much more stressed. That is also there is a survey that said that women are more stressed, and that's why they rely on these network technologies. And most of the time, women are always disadvantaged positions, and they are also marginalized. Just because they are marginalized, they take to, and just because they are not into these peer cultures, huh, they usually live in a confined world and for world of home. So they used to, like, log into network technologies, and it will give them a kind of, like, relief. Huh. So it is also said, and they disclose more information. Perhaps they look for more like-minded friends in this networking site. Okay, now you see, when you talk about privacy, privacy of behavior is there, and that is also a bigger dimension to study, both for development journalist as well as for a new media expert. Okay, so privacy of behavior, how you actually serve, whether you look into the privacy features or not. In one particular website, you visit a website, how many of you actually look into the privacy features and privacy regulations of the website? And when you buy any kind of product, even when you install an app, have you even read the privacy features of an app? You are quite consumed with the services that a particular application is going to provide you. An application which perhaps will give you the recording facility, editing facility. These are utility applications. There are applications which, all applications are utility, also utility application. There are applications which can, like, help you, which can teach you how to cook even. There are other applications nowadays help you to write a poem. Poem writing application is also there now. So you can be a poet with the help of applications. Okay, but at the same time, you see there are numbers of application. It will provide you services, but most of the time, we are too consumed with that service. Wow, what an applications! We won't even read the privacy implications, the privacy guidelines and the rules which are incorporated and which are enshrined in that app applications, right? So that is related to our behavior to privacy, how conscious we are regarding the privacy, our attitude towards the privacy. So when we talk about the new media is different from old media just because new media has taken away our privacy. At the same time, there are also some of the other dynamics of privacy. When you talk about privacy, we do not have a framework, legal framework, legislation to protect the privacy of the individual. Hmm. So, when you discuss the new media, the implications of new media, the status of new media, the impact of new media in the society, various laws which, like, which are also connected to new media, you also need to understand the existing legislation, how far it has actually provided a scope to protect our fundamental rights, and that too in relation to new media. So these existing laws will not provide any kind of, like, any kind of clause even, or any choice to protect the privacy. So there is no legislation or legal framework on privacy, and also there is no separation of public, private, and sensitive information. So when you are talking about information, information can be sensitive, information can be public, information can be private. Now there is no framework which can separate this very information. When you say sensitive information, your health information is sensitive information. Okay, your password information is sensitive information, financial information is sensitive information. This is not private information, sensitive information. So information has to be highlighted, rubricated, categorized into separate slot. Like, okay, this is sensitive information, this is private information, and this is public information. Certain information are public, for which we have right to access, right to information act. So all the public information are are subject to get accessible by the citizen. So public information. But what is private? Our private information. There are many private information. Now you see, we talk about interactivity. Interactivity is also associated with the users. Interactivity is associated with our body. So another definition of new media said that it has created a new media and body interaction. So here we see actually user and machine interaction, new biological like an interface has come up. We talk about artificial intelligence here, and also we talk about the interactivity features, the way we put the input, like put we simply set or put or insert various input and we get the result and outcome. This thing. Suppose our psychological, like mood, our muscle tensions, skin resistance, our use blood pressure. Okay, everything has been, you see, everything has been commanded by this new media technology and give you a kind of idea about the mood of the person. At the same time, nowadays it has given a kind of health relief. Okay, so you can actually learn the mood of the person and also even feel that one person is giving, putting a hand on you and saying that okay, I'm there with you. So it's with the help of this artificial intelligence, even Alexa is there. So these are all artificial intelligence, So it is actually see and vibrations. Okay, so it captures the vibration. So in that way, so it has actually you say it has created a new interface, like you see bodily interface, the same times, and in that way also it has taken away our privacy. So everywhere you get to find it taken away your privacy, your blood pressure, your muscle tension, your everything is related to your health, bodily integrity. It has taken away. And where data is being stored, how safe it is very, very important. Now, when you talk about new media, it is related to memory function. In the very first class, I have told you that one function is very, very important, that is memory function. And this memory function has made new media distinct from old media, and this memory function in fact had changed all the dynamics of the medium. Like if we say that journalism, the dynamics of journalism has changed. You must have learned about gatekeeping model, gatekeeping, right? Gatekeeping you have learned. So the dynamics of gatekeeping has been changed completely. In one video also I have discussed, if I have shared with you, I really don't remember. So as I have discussed there, that whole gatekeeping, role of gatekeepers has been changed nowadays. C4D students, have you learned about gatekeeping? Gatekeeping. Now you know about gatekeepers. So when you talk about the gatekeepers, now the role of gatekeepers have been changed and there are more and more gatekeepers now. Okay, ISP, Internet Service Provider, is also gatekeepers nowadays. Okay, different filter we use nowadays, they are also gatekeepers. So gatekeepers are not restricted to editors. Gatekeepers are not restricted to the editors of the media house. So the whole phenomenon of gatekeepers have been changed. Okay, and that's how we actually see the difference between new media and old media. So you understand? Okay, so you can write a question if I ask you to write the difference between new media and old media. And I have also discussed about some of the points which I will not repeat there regarding this dispersion. That means new media content are much more, you say, diffused and bigger in scale. And that's what is one single difference between new media and old media. Versatility is also one point, that it has also helped you to immerse into that situation. So it stimulates you. Now you say when you do stimulation, stimulation is something which is not a single feature or characteristic attached to new media. Okay. When you are talking about stimulation, stimulation is also features attached to traditional media. Okay. So hence you see more and more exposure to media will actually heighten the level of hyperactivity. It will stimulate you. You will absorb the content and get sometimes disconnected content, sometimes some of the assimilated, like pictures, images, and it will reduce the level of boredom times, and it will also stimulate hyperactivity. But what happened that what requires to complete the task, a sustained application of mind and body is not there nowadays in most of the, like you see, newer generation because of your that prolonged exposure to media content. Mobile phone is their prolonged exposure to that mobile phone content. So you do not have that sustained application of mind and body to finish a task, but you are hyperactive. Okay, there is also a generation gap which has been accelerated day by day. So these are impact of new media, even impact of the uses of new media if you see. Huh. There is a generation that has been accelerated. Our lifestyle has been changes. The pattern of work has been changes. Our preference has been changes. Right. So that generation gap has also accelerated more and more with the help of like accelerated with the use of new media, and that can perhaps be much more understandable with the use and everyday exposure of new media. Okay, now when we talk about the dropping down the level of boredom, okay, the same times that eagerness for a like new consumable device is also more and more among the among the new generation. So we have become a citizen nowadays like conscious. No, new media has created a kind of false consciousness among the you see among the users, and in that way we have been into the race of consumption, more and more consuming. Perhaps this is what is another trend if you look at critically, let me tell you. Okay, if you look at critically, we are into that consumption rate. We're acquiring more and more services, more and more applications, more and more gizmos, gloss. So we look for that which has a gloss appeal, as I've already told you. Why people prefer, why students prefer mass media, mass communication nowadays instead of C40 because of that gloss appeal. Because you want to be an anchor, right? Perhaps most of you want to be an anchor. You want to get yourself even see in the screen, okay, because of this glamour, okay. But at the same time, so critically we can see that okay, there is a gloss appeal, there is a consumption drive with associated with media as well as new media, and new media has, you say, it has accentuated it, okay. And because we and it has also accentuated this that ego concept. So have you gone through the differences? So I have also developed, given a typology of factors how new media is different from old media in terms of channel. Number of channel has been increases nowadays. Number of channel increases. So we have more number of channels, okay, and also two-way transmission is there. So we have that bidirectionality of communication that will ensure social presence of the person who are interacting. So bidirectionality is very, very important. Bidirectionality of communication. That will ensure social presence of the person. You are communicating in new media, you are into WhatsApp group. So at times there is a communication between us and synchronous as well as asynchronous. Synchronicity is there. Synchronicity is there. Basically, it is there in video conferencing. The synchronicity is there much more at once communication. Asynchronous communication is there when we talk of like mail. Okay, synchronicity is less in email, but at the same time you have that social presence ensured with the help of new media, right? So you have, yeah, sorry, asynchronicity and synchronicity. Okay, these are some of the features of new media, and you might also say these are the features of interactivity. I'll get back to you regarding this, okay? So, because when we discuss about interactivity, these features will be much more relevant, synchronicity and asynchronicity. So, I have given a typology of differences between new media and old media. Those differences, old media basically, if there is a one channel, new media has multiple channel. Channel are more, right? So at the same time, communication, way of communication is different. One-way communication, and here in new media, we have that two-way communication. There is more and more opportunity to feedback. So you must have read various models of communication now. So that opportunity of feedback is more in new media. Okay. So in old media, that feedback was also a bit like impose feedback. So we have created, it is not you say, it is not something embedded. Okay, so how feedback, provision of feedback is being uncertain through letters to editors. That is another provision of feedback, and even phone-in, that is provision of feedback. That was, I will not see an embedded features because interactivity of traditional media is less. But in new media, feedback is embedded already with the, and that is identified with the help of hyperlink. So hyperlink has already ensured the feedback. So, but the thing is that feedback is there, opportunity is there, the space is there. It is up to you, up to the user, whether user is responsive or not. Okay, so that is one thing. So hence, in new media, when we study the interactivity, it is very very important to study different features like user to user interaction, hmm, and user to machine interaction and user to message interaction. Okay, so what we were, okay, talking about the two-way communication, that is also one difference. Third difference is that is the research. Research in traditional media were different. Earlier research were based on content analysis. You actually watch television, you study the content of one particular serial, one news, analyze the content based on some of the parameters, and then you submit. But now, how can you study content? Abundance of content in new media. So it's not even possible to study the content in new media. Okay, so what will you study? You will study the interface. Basically, the interface design you will study. So, okay, and that's how research is also different in new media than traditional media. So channels are different, okay, research is different, mode of communication is different, ego concept which is associated with, like, with the user or with the audience. So audience turn to user in new media. So who we call audience? Audience has also a different definitions. They're heterogeneous group. They are not necessarily highly organized. As we have told you, as I have told you in last class, we talk about public communication, right? So new media is something which is public communication, related to public communication. And we also have a definition of public. Public is a heterogeneous organization, heterogeneous mass, but at the same time you also see there is an organization. A few people say it's a homogeneous organization. No, heterogeneous mass, but they're organized and they do have opinion on different issues, and they are likely to form a collective, and at the same time they would likely to develop a course of action, and that's why they are public. And we are talking here about communication meant for public. Okay, when we are talking about communication, content, substance meant for public, messages meant for public, you see that public, you also need to understand the ego concept of the public. So ego is something earlier, audience ego concept was very different, as it was already discussed. It is based on self-arousal. So stimulation, self-arousal, they identify with like-minded others. Suppose they have seen a character, they identify with that. In television, they have seen a character, they identified. Housewife tend to identify themselves with this character of this. This is through their survey has also already uh, uh, that made it evident that they tend to identify with some of the characters. Okay, so that is also attached to ego concept, and ego concept is the driver of motivation. How you are motivated to watch a serial, motivated to watch, read a content, even watch a news. Okay, so that is associated with this ego concept. Okay, so continue. Okay, why you are smiling? Is everything all right? You understood? Okay. The C's are pretty simple, I'm telling you. You need it. You need it, it's very easy. You understand? Huh? You have understood? You are getting? Okay. You are from Patna. Where? From? Meerut. Okay, Meerut. When did you join? After 18? Okay. Okay. This is your first class in new media? Yeah. Okay. You have joined after 18th? No, man. After 25. Oh, yeah. What's your name? Abhishek. Abhishek. You are from? I'm from Bihar. Okay, good. Okay. So where I was? Ego concept. Okay. Yeah. So ego concept is a see, motivational force, right? So your motivational force to see a content, read a content, right? And then in new media, it is also related. Ego concept is not related to this self-arousal or identification with others, but basically it is related to self-actualization. Actualizations that go and get it, kind of. You actualize it. Actualize it. You find some like-minded people, and with whom you can interact. So, and that's how you have satisfied your urge. Okay, like-minded others you have found. So that's it. May be Avatar also. You might not know him or her, whether he or she. You might not know, but at the same time, you need a company. So you simply go and started talking to him, develop a friendship, but you do not have any further interest. You might have some further interest, you might not have, but yeah, you have actualized it. But in that earlier, like that is kind of arousal concept is there. That means you identify in that way. Yeah, I'm like him, and this is the notion of the society, and that's how this is happening to me. So that's how your like motivation is also like motivation drives you to watch some program. Okay, it at the same time it also create a kind of you see you that activity or sensitize you to do something or desensitize you to do something that watching of particular content has sensitized or desensitized you to do something, and that is related to cultivation also. So when you are talking about cultivation is also attached to ego concept nowadays. People said that there is no relevance of cultivation nowadays. Cultivation theory is no relevant now. So this is in the morning I could not take class because of my severe throat problem. Okay, so it is related to it is related to okay. Uh, yeah, yeah. As you just told about the ego concept. Right. So the ego concept is only new media. In traditional media also we have ego concept. And yeah, they also member motivate through advertisement of program and other things to just show some kind of entertainment. Through advertisement, through different programs we see and we identify ourselves. Ego concept is something your ego is based on. Okay, so it is the identification with the others is the motivating factor. When we see an advertisement, okay, at the same time, we have developed that kind of like attachment to advertisement, and not an advertisement that promise which is attached to a object, to an object. Suppose all these toothpaste, car, any kind of shop you take. So we buy shop not because it will clean the body, but we buy stuff because it will beautify us. We'll buy toothpaste not because it will clean the germs, because it will whiten our teeth. We buy a car not for travel, but we buy a car because it will satisfy our that social prestige. It is related to social prestige, but it is also related to other categories of needs. Okay, other categories, and whether you are an impulsive buyer and your decision is based on hedonism, your decision is based on so utility factor. That is also factor, no doubt. There are few factors. Even when I bought my first car, that was not driven by any kind of impulse and status. It was driven by a need at that point of time. I required a car to finish one research project, UGC research project. I bought my first car in 2012. Hmm. So that was driven by need. Okay, so not necessarily that it will be similar across and everybody is driven by the promise. So some need is associated and ego is also associated with the need. Okay, so need to identify yourself with like-minded other, identify yourself with the character, with even a celebrity, satisfy your need, gratifies your need. Okay, need of using one particular media. So media has conferred status, at the same time media has created role model, and that is also related to your ego concept. Who is your role model now? In new media environment, now you see we do not have a role model. Most of the student people can't even say who is his role model because there are so many models to see. So earlier we had a role model party. We know that okay, Kiran Bedi is our role model, or some distinguished person we usually take. Okay, he or she is our role model. Because of the salience of importance which is given to that person. Salience of importance because the importance, the priorities given by the media to that person. Hence, he or she was the role model because that person has been covered for a quite period of time, long period of time, given extensive coverage, has already created a kind of image or impression in our mind, right? And that's how we can identify ourselves with himself. If he or she is our role model, okay, we want to be like him or her. Okay, but now it is all about self-actualization. If I want to be Kiran Bedi, so role model, but more than I aspire to be, I really don't know whether I will see, I will try to find out. Earlier, other the issues is that more than Kiran Bedi, perhaps one of your friend, that IPS officer, may be your role model because you are in an interacting good terms, interacting terms, or talking terms with him or her because you have already self-actualized with him, like your views, your opinions, everything, and you have got the support from him or her. So he or she can also be a role model for you. Now you see that it has created a new peer culture. So new media is the environment condition of new media is much more, you see, related to self-actualization. And this is also related to another example, number of murder you commits through video game. Number of murder you commits through video games and the number of murders you have seen in the serials in TV. So if you have seen some numbers of murders, but here in new media, it is on the basis of self-actualization. You have actually committed number of murders through video game. So video game, there are some video game, PUBG, and there are different video games. You will see they are related to murders. If you are committed, if you make, you have uh, collide this kind of accident, collide with that car, you will win this point. So how many this kind of activities you are into? So there are some harmful video games you will see. So in that way also, number of murder I'll see in a virtual world. I have been justifying the fact. So that is also related to self-actualization. So murder you have committed through video game. Okay, but murder you have committed, actually not murder, you have seen that murder. Okay, so in that way also your cultivation, effects of cultivation have changed. So cultivation has created a worldview, right? So cultivation has created a worldview based on lowest common denominator. Lowest common denominator. So the lowest common denominator. Lowest common denominator, what is that? Because there are so many content. No, what to focus on. So media tend to focus on those content which will sensitize people. Crime is one factor, sensitize people. Crime is highly sensational. So crime, violence are lowest common denominator. Okay. So and it doesn't require a person to be highly educated, illiterate, or pragmatic. It doesn't require a person not necessarily engage in any kind of conversation. So any kind of audience with a orientation, be it casual audience, organized audience, you say pragmatic audience, or an intellectual audience also, and an audience which actually seeks certain media content based on purpose like information, recreation, or conversation can actually go for watching violence and crime. Okay. And also a casual audience and a illiterate audience also love to watch crimes. Intellectual will also love to watch crimes. And hence, you actually see this crime and violence put in laws data. So there are studies carried out to understand the cultivation of media content on the audience. Right. But nowadays, the whole cultivation theory has been changed because cultivation has created a worldview regarding one particular phenomenon. So, worldview, you have constructed some worldview, and that is also based on your personal experience, popular wisdom, and somehow some factors like your past experience, your personal prejudices, and popular wisdom in the society will also determine the cultivation. So not necessarily how number of times you have or frequency of watching the television content, okay, or heavy viewership will also help to cultivate some of the worldviews on the violence, or to say that, or to preserve any opinion or to create any opinion, rather than, you see, there are also other factors which will help, and that is your personal experience as well as popular wisdom. But now you see this worldview, this singular worldview has been changed because there is no cultivation as such. Earlier cultivation was predictable, but nowadays cultivation is not predictable because you see because there is more and more self-actualization. People are looking for like-minded group, okay, and at the same time, based on their their intensity of conversation, they have cultivated their own world. And that's how in new media, now you see, we get to see new media environment, get to see this emergence of hate groups, pedophilia, and number of extremist group, okay, arised. Okay, not necessarily this is the effect of, you see, reduced cultivation, or you see heightened cultivation. So more or less cultivation has accentuated increase, or more or less it has decreased also, not cultivated in a right way, but just because of other factor, interactivity is more, self-actualization is more, ego concept has been changed. Okay, so getting more exposure to multimedia content, and also there is self-defooning behavior which is more and more. You see that this group has been created. Virtuality has created, helped to create certain group. Okay, which also you have developed a ego concept. You can identify both arousal as well as actualization. Okay, so cultivation effects has changed. Cultivation effects earlier based on social learning. So you are learning from the society. Although it is said that age group, gender group, as well as other socio-economic variables won't even impact on cultivation. Gardner's understanding of cultivation won't even taken into consideration of socio-economic variables of the group of audience which are exposed to content. Suppose their socio-economic variables, the kind of that community they belong to, their age group, and gender, whether male or female, according to Garber, irrespective of governor, male and female, irrespective of gender, irrespective of male, female, irrespective of any age, irrespective of socio-economic background, people tend to have similar kind of cultivation if they expose to a particular content for a period of time. They are simply termed as heavy viewer. Okay. At the same time, those who are live viewer are not supposed to have that kind of cultivation. Suppose live viewers are tend to get more excited looking at the violence than heavy viewer, or perhaps this viewership, or like sorry, that exposure of violence tend to create a numbing effect among the heavy viewers than light viewers. So, like that way, Governor categorized heavy viewer and light viewers, but he did not take into consideration the socio-economic variables, which community, which background, like that's lower caste, upper caste, middle class. We all are middle class. Like basically, most of us are middle class, belong to middle class families. So upper class, middle class, lower class, which section of community, whether that class variable usually impact, that religion variable impact that viewing, whether it is what gender variable or age variable impact the viewing like perspective or not is not discussed by governor. But here in new media, we actually get to find these very variables. Apart from light and heavy variable, you actually take into account these very variables nowadays. Hence, the cultivation theory, the effects of cultivation has been changed. But we look at the other variables nowadays. Okay, apart from the frequency of watching, how many times what's a particular series. Now, we also have a tracking system that will give us understanding about how long that exposure has been made, or exposure has been yeah, that delineated or taken by this by the user, how long he or she exposed to one particular ad, one particular video, one particular program. We have a tracking system. In that way also we can identify. So the cultivation effect, at the same time, simultaneously, we have the virtuality. Virtuality tend to distinguish new media from old media. So virtuality has completely, it has completely uh, given a new dimension to cultivation, because newer groups have come out, different communities have come out. They have started chatting on the content which they have watched. Earlier also groups usually form, like children or we adult usually see some of the program, watch some of the programs, and in the school, in the college, we discuss about, like the fashion show, discuss about any serials, like it happens, or discuss about the jingles by the kids in a school. That happens, but that public sphere concept was different. But now online public sphere has been created with the help of interactivity. You understand? Okay. You're not getting bored, huh? It's fine. I see. Very good. Okay. When there is a saturation, you tell me, ma'am. It's fine. Today we can't digest more. So it's done. Difference between new media and old media. So you can write an answer properly. Now we move to another difference. Very, very important differences. Okay. These are related to interactivity. So, okay, what is this interactivity? I'll share a video. Interactivity is one of the very decisive character of new media. Okay, interactivity has been ensured by hypertextuality and multimediality. Now, these are also three features. I might have discussed in one video: hypertextuality, multimediality, and interactivity. Have I discussed? No? Okay. Okay. Multimediality and features. Now you see, when you talk about this interactivity, even interactivity comprises these two elements. You see, first, when you talk about difference between new and old media, you can also talk about the differences. Okay, that is justified. Yeah, new media is different from old media by dint of these very features like hypertextuality, multimediality, and interactivity. But when you define interactivity, interactivity is this is the features which is connected to hypertextuality and multimediality. This is a feature of new media. When I say this is a feature of new media, it is a new media because of interactivity. Old media doesn't have interactivity. Television doesn't have interactivity. Now, as I have already discussed, interactivity can be classified into, I'll discuss these three terms, but before that it is classified into three: user message, and user machine. User interactivity, which is there in different virtual community, chat groups, and you see, there are also other community, uh, even any kind of this where subscription is required. Okay, uh, even networking site in Facebook, in mail group. Okay, so that interact that what is there? Sorry, what I said? User. Okay, user interactivity. User machine interactivity is there in computer. When we interact and we get the output in a WordPress, we interact, we get the output. That is user machine interactivity. So that is word we use, Excel sheet, spreadsheet we use. Okay, that is user machine interactivity. So machine, that is an interactivity between, like, me and the machine, you and the machine. That user machine interactivity is there. Then user message interactivity is also there. User message interactivity is the control over the message. User control over the message. Now, let me tell you, there are some dimension of interactivity. Dimensions of interactivity are dimensions of interactivity are the number of choices it provides to the users. First, number of choices it provides to the users. Another definition of interactivity can be it is also a facility to communicate to a person or an institution at a distance, irrespective of time, is also interactivity. Another definition of interactivity is also a facility to communicate to a person, facility to communicate to an institution, facility to communicate to a business, irrespective of the distance and time. Okay, so that is also another definition of interactivity. Now you see that of facility of addressing a person is interactivity, and getting the response from the person is interactivity. So earlier in old media, you have that facility to addressing the audience, but you did not have that facility to even getting the response back. Now, second dimension, one dimension is the number of choices available to the audience, and responsiveness of the user, both. Should I write down or simply I can tell? Okay. Choices available to the user. Second one is um, control, giving more control, giving active control, ensure responsiveness. Then you see monitoring of information is of information. Okay, so these are some of the directions, dynamics, okay, dimension, or even use the dynamics. So choices available to the users in giving active control. Sorry, active control to the users. To the users. Okay, users. Ensuring responsiveness of the users and monitoring of the information and ease of adding information. Okay, so if you look at those dimensions, you see it will actually ensure, suppose when you talk about interactivity, we will get to see interactivity in terms of hyperlink now. So now, before we get into those dimensions, we understand hypertextuality. Hypertextuality is hypertextuality. What is hypertextuality? It is also related to that hyperlink concept, the nonlinear way of surfing this information. So when we are talking about this hypertext, hypertextuality is related to hypertext which come from the hyperlink, the concept of hyperlink, and that is also originated in 1945 by a person called uh, by an engineer actually, that is he is called Vannevar Bose, who developed a MEMEX system, the system of MEMEX, you know, MEMEX system, and we ideated on the basis of our thinking order, which is non-linear. We don't think, even we don't read top to bottom most of the time. We don't think in a linear fashion, one after another. Our thoughts are non-linear. So at any point of time, some different kind, even if we think that I'll think in this fashion, so it's not in order. It is always in disorder. So we might be very focused, very determined, but our thinking process is not at all linear. So as our thinking process is not linear, he based on our thinking process, he developed a system of MEMEX from which he can see that these papers and you see work, any kind of publishing work is also a representation of our thoughts, right? So if you develop a paper, if you write an article, this is a representation of your thought. So you can develop a system the way you can link these various thought in a non-linear fashion. Okay, so I'm linking these papers through a system that is hyperlink and make a non-linearity or multilinearity. You can create a multilinearity through that particular system. So hypertext has got some of the hypertext or hyperlink has some of the features. Hyperlink, when that eye cursor has done to that pointer, index finger kind of pointer, you click on it. So that is hyperlink. It is actually originated in a MEMEX system. Huh. So linking of documents, article, or representation of the thought in a non-linear fashion. So this has got some property. Property is like multilinearity. Multilinearity. So you click on one, you go to visit a website, you actually see there are numerous links. There are navigational links, that is one part of interactivity. There are functional links and there are adaptive links. Okay, so I'll torture you today until and unless you get bored, because I will not be able to take that chance later on. So that is matching. What? Yeah, you can go. Yeah. Whosoever has but until and unless my throat allows me, that is also my throat problem. This week. And the thing is that I might also miss the class later on. You never know. And I'm on medication. I have come here. Okay. But you understand. You have understood? Huh? Understood?
My body is not aligned.
Huh?
My body is not aligned.
Sorry?
Body is not aligned to Instagram.
What is not aligned? Oh, have you gone through the recorded video lectures? Hmm. So see, this happens when there is number of classes, and I have also you see, no command over it because I cannot control. There are seminars, there are other activities in the department. There are seminars. Yesterday also, I missed a class. Day after yesterday, so I missed a class, right? So I have no control. And so now I have got the control. So yeah, listen to this. But later on, you might also suffer because I will not be taking classes. I do not have class also Monday. If I won't be able to get scope to take class someone, if I go to replacement, then it will be difficult, right? And that is the reason. Otherwise, it is better for me if I can leave something for Monday. So perhaps some new content might come out. Okay, but okay. So one is multilinearity. Okay, so these are the properties of hyperlink. I'll discuss about this dimension of interactivity, but before that, I'll discuss about some of the properties of hypertextuality, and these are multilinear. Multi- Then we also have this decentered, then multivocality. Then we have active reading. Intertextuality. Now you see, these are the features of hypertextuality. One is multilinearity. You have understood the concept multilinearity. So it is based on non-linear way of reading, as you actually see, and
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Can you please explain in simple terms the concept of linearity?
sorry.
Like it's multilinearity is a feature.
Okay.
Can you please explain linearity?
Yeah, I'll explain it in terms of hypertextuality. You understood hypertextuality? Understood? You haven't got it. Okay. Hypertextuality is a concept which is based on hypertext, which derive its meaning from hyperlink. Now again, you see that is you simply say that you can simply say that hypertextuality is related to hyperlink, and which is based on the concept of memex. Okay, and Manek, now you need to know the origin of hyperlink, like, or hypertextuality. Origin of hypertextuality or hypertext has come in 1945. You understood? 1945, Manek was the person who usually originated the term called Mamex in order to link the articles, documents available.
Basically the link that are provided through.
That's what link that is provided. But you see, you need to know the origin. You simply link that is provided not in one sentence. Everybody knows about it. Hypertext and hyperlink. But origin is the Mamex system. And how Mamex system is come? Mamex system is something. Mamex system is based on non-linear thinking. So non-linear thinking is associated with multilinearity. Our thought process is not linear. It is not in order. So as our thoughts are represented in these articles and all, and in order to link the articles, documents in a non-linear fashion, refer the concept called multilinearity. This multilinearity shows that the linking to back page, front page, linking, it actually means linking to even next page, linking to editors and mail to editors, okay, and some adaptive features which also come in the multilinearity. Understand? So basically it will link. It is all about linking. Whatever I'm talking about this hypertextuality is linking. Link. So how will you now write about the link? So if I tell you write about link and tell me about link, tell me about hyperlink. So and these are some of the narrative properties. And why do you know about the hypertextuality? Why do you know about link? So first layer is the multilinear. Second is decenteredness. You see, centered, decenteredness in the sense that in traditional newspaper, there is a centered concept, means all the articles. So there is also there all the articles are separated in different pages. Like there's op-ed page, there's sports page, there is also feature page, right? And centered, it is all the articles are centered. Decenteredness in the sense or recenteredness, reader do not have, from the reader's point of view, they do not have a center. They read an article, they find a link in between, they click there, they move to another side. So somehow that centeredness, that there is a loss of centeredness. And there is also decenteredness, you see. That is another narrative property of hyperlink. Third is narrative property of hyperlink, hypertext, hyperlink, hyperlink. Third is active reading. It will ensure active reading. How it will ensure active reading? Earlier we happen to be the passive reader. As a newspaper reader also, we were the passive reader. Or newspaper reading activity is also said that it is individual activity. It can also be a communal activity based on the context. Newspaper reading habit is an individual as well as communal activity. But in here you see, active reading is basically not about the reading, but at the same time, you are also interacting and creating your own group, discussion group, creating your own peer group for discussion on the topic or taking part in a chat room or discussion board. Okay, so that is called active reading. So you are not simply reading the content, you are also commenting on. You read a blog. Okay, you like the blog and you don't like the blog, you put a comment. So that is called active reading. But you are not a passive reader, you are responding to it. Okay, as you have put a response, you are an active reader. If you are not responding, that means you are not reading. In the chat, even in WhatsApp message, you are sending me a message. I haven't responded you back. Means I haven't read the message. But there is also technical features which will let you know whether I have seen the message or not. Right? So that is a different features. But if I'm not responding, that means I have not read the message. So that is. So I'm not an active reader. I'm a passive reader. There. Here, hypertextuality will ensure the active reader. Right? Active reading. Ensure you to be the active reader, and it will ensure active reader. So it is another narrative property of hypertextuality, hyperlink. Intertextuality. See, it is Derrida. You might have heard about Derrida. They have actually Derrida told about this intertextuality. You from English department. You are from English department. You know. So intertextuality means text doesn't contain a an exclusive meaning of itself. So texts are always related. So if I'm saying you something, it is related to other texts. So you have multiple meaning, multiple interpretation, and that's how any reading, any materials, any documents have, like that it has the scope of multiple interpretation. So text is also text which is there. It has multiple. You see, multiple reading, multiple meaning. So hypertext has ensured it through annotations by providing the link associated to it other material. Again, that material associated to it, connected to other material, connecting it to material after material, giving annotation, giving internet like annotations, giving references, and also creating a Ramsey spot. That means a chat room and all. So it has actually created intertextuality. It is also created at the same time multilinearity, decenteredness, multivocality, and revectority. So you understood? Vocality. When you are talking about multivocality, so when you talk multivocality means multiple voices. When you can ensure multiple voices. When so hyperlink ensure multiple voices in one particular material. So you go through any kind of material online, a website. And through the annotation, through the link, through the interactive, that narrative property, the interactive features, you get to acquaint and familiarize with multiple voices. Not a voice of an editor. In newspaper also, there are different correspondents, different stuffs are there. So multiple voices are being ensured. But at the same time, here when we talk about newspaper, there is a gatekeeper. Let me tell you, here it is very, very essential to know about the gatekeeping model. In newspaper, you have a gatekeeper. Gatekeeper is the editor. There are different factors which will help you to understand the news. Okay, and understand the gates of the news. Editor at the gates, but there are different factors: economic factors, social factor, political factors, which will determine the news, which news will go. And also there are some personal factors: source factor, journalistic factor, and organizational factor. Now, when you talk about this gatekeeping model, you might have seen it is associated with gates, and there are different gates like individual level. There is a gate. There is an extra gate at extra media level. There is a gate at organizational level. There is a gate at ideological level. So many gates have been created, and these gates are also associated with the sources of the news. These gates are associated with the journalist. These gates are also associated with organizational factors. Okay, these gates are associated with, you tell me, ideological inclination, that partisanship of the media house, their ideology, financial resources of that media house, right? Then the editor's inclinations, whether the media house is an alternative media, or it is a, you say that um, a citizen, not a citizen journalist, or a public interest, or a tabloid one, tabloid newspaper, when whether the newspaper is tabloid, whether it is a alternative media, and also ideological affiliation of that newspaper, that will determine the policy of the newsroom. And that's why they are the gates. So at, you see, at a proprietor level there are some gates. At journalist level also there are some gray. Journalist will determine the story format, story angle, story perspective, story format. Radio, TV, like photography have different format. Story angle and perspective will be determined by the journalist, and journalist subjectivity is associated with that story format. At the same time, you see the deadline constraint, location constraint. These are journalistic influence, or you say gate. So deadline constraint is there. So story is influenced by the deadline constraint. It could have been written longer, but just because there is a deadline, you could not finish. Location constraint, you could have gone there to find extra, like informant, but you could not even go there because of, like that hilly terrain or whatever, there are problem in the road. Okay, so location constraint is there. There are problems related to user space and strength of the medium. Sometimes what happened, the picture you use, it overpowers it. So the picture overpowers the content, the picture overpowers the content, so you need to see it. So the power of the gate. Okay, then whether it is neutral or not, so it has already overpowered it has overpowered the whole, you see, whole content at times. So the space constraint is there, times constraint is there, length of the video, length of the audio, whether it will allow to go on air or not. So these are some of the journalistic, you see, impulses or compulsions which are related to gatekeeping. Source factors are there. When you say source factor, whether source is resourceful or not, source has a strength or not, the trust of source with the journalist, you need to find out. That is another factors. Location of the source, that will also determine the story, right? At the same time, you also need to find out the personal factor of the journalist, age of the journalist, experience of the journalist, his political leanings, political ideology, and knowledge of the journalist on that particular topic. So gatekeepers have been, you see, the gatekeeper journalists have been influenced by so many factors, and there are also different layers. Now here, when you talk about, so I'm telling you because it is a very natural skill. You need to know, you need to relate it. Okay. So here also, when you talk about the narrative property of hypertextuality, Here you see this multilinearity, decentered, multifocality, active reading, intertextuality. These has actually created some of the new gates, but new gates role is not to filter, dismiss, delete. These are some of the new gates which will help you to help the users to highlight more and giving more importance to some of the stories, getting more voice from the voiceless. Okay, so these are the new gates. And here the role of gatekeepers has been changed. Here hyperlink has become another gatekeeper. Cookies, filters, these are also gatekeepers. Here in new media, ISP, Internet Service Provider, is the gatekeeper in new media. So role of gatekeepers have been changed in the new media. How Internet Service Provider is a gatekeepers? Because they foreground some of the, you see, some of the sites, internet site, than other site. In that way, you have you get a more visibility to some of the site than other sites. Okay, in that way, they are gatekeepers here in new media environment. Okay, done.
So much information.
This video, I'll upload this video. Cannot guide this more? No? You have been in the department today. So in my class, so who took the class? Borasa took the lunch break. Okay. So, okay, I'll finish it because otherwise, like, okay. कोई बात नहीं, ये finish कर देती हूँ और उसके बाद okay, this interactivity. Okay, these are the properties. I quickly I will read it. So when you talk about the dimensions, so choices. Anyhow, you see that paper journalism, that principle of journalism is a 2 credit paper, I guess. So and you have got one more faculty. Right, that the 8th student, Abhilas Apanasa, is a good student. We will definitely take care of that paper. So, take good care of that paper. Again, so you see that dimensions, choices available to the users. Okay, so these are dimensions of interactivity. So it will make some choices available to users, giving active control to the users. What is that active control? Active control.
They can select whatever.
Right, right. So I'll not describe much. Okay. Ensuring responsiveness, bidirectional, it will ensure. Monitoring the information. How? Huh? Right. Yeah. Ease of adding information. Hmm? Editing. In Wiki, even Wikipedia, you can also add more and more information. Right. So these are some of the dimensions of interactivity. Now we see interactivity is another thing like navigational interactivity. Navigational interactivity means, so this is what is very essential dimension of interface design. Now research are also based on, new media research are based on interface design, right? Very interface design. Interface design. In interface design, we do have this navigation and interactivity. Then we talk about adaptive interactivity. And we also have functional interactivity. Navigational interactivity, back-to-back pages, next to move to next pages, and then another pages. Navigation is maneuver, scrolling up and down is called navigational interactivity in a website. When you actually study the interface of the website, you will have these 3 types of interactivity. This interface design is in terms of website, you write down. These 3 navigational interactivity is the first kind of interactivity which you'll get to see and which through which you can understand the number of pages in the website, back to pages, like that scrolling menu bar, and this menu, the number of links about us, home, then if it is an institution like a faculty, number of students. Okay, so these all are navigational interactivity. Adaptive interactivity will give salience to the interest of the user and provide the content as per the interest of the user. Give salience to the interest of the user means that, you see, most of the time, uh, if you are a sports lover, you will get to find the sports content in Facebook, in networking site. Why it is so? Just because of the algorithms, and it has been programmed in such a way that if you have provided some information about like loving sports and all, so you keep on getting information related to sports. This is related to adaptive interactivity. It is a two-way interactivity. User, you are interacting with a business. Okay, any kind of website, that may be Facebook, that is also your interaction with that social media, any kind of network platform. So whosoever you are interacting with, in Facebook also you have multilinearity. Here in Facebook, you have multilinearity, like you are interacting with numerous groups, you are interacting with numerous profiles of the friends, and also you are interacting with different newses. So multilinearity is anyhow there in Facebook, right? And there are also adaptive interactivity, I'm sure, based on your likelihood of receiving the kind of messages. Okay, so you are a sports lover, Bollywood lover, accordingly, you will receive some of the recent happenings and the news come to you. And adaptive interactivity is also related to customization. Suppose you have that provision now in most of the website that you can increase the size of the font. Web design, you can increase the size of the font. No amplification provision is there. So it is related to adaptive interactivity. So that provision is there. Or you can install a different software, then you can go through the content. So that is also related to adaptive features, adaptive to the system. So adaptive to the need, adaptive to your interest, adaptive to the system that you are like using. Okay, so this is what is adaptive. Functional interactivity, which actually makes a conversation happening. Okay, makes a task happening, makes a communication, actual communication process undertakes. So makes the undertaken. So you see that when you talk about the functional interactivity, so here you actually see there are provision of mail to, provision of that chat features. As I have told you that you're reading an article, there you have a provision. Just after this, beneath this article, you have provision of chatting with this with the author. Okay, that is a functional interactivity. You can mail to the editor. Okay, so there is a asynchronicity in the mail. Editor might not receive your mail that time, or might not see even if he receives or she received that mail, might not reply or respond back to you. But the thing is that you have ensured that task is completed. So communication has been directed in both way. Or you have ensured sending a mail that I'm an active reader, I have been reading this article, I have got this very point, I'm mailing back to you. That is what is functional interactivity. So these are very, very important. So if you study a website also, this interface design is supposed to be studied, and these are the interactivity features which are very, very essential to study. So apart from this, there are interactivity like you see, as I have already told you, synchronicity, asynchronicity. Asynchronicity is there when there is no real-time communication, but there is a delayed communication between the sender and the receiver. Suppose I'm sending a mail, you are not receiving at once. So basically, it is equivalent to delayed communication, because you will not, like, receiving it and giving me a response at your own pace, at your convenience. Synchronicity and is more when there is a chat provision, video conferencing, as you see. There's a real-time communication, live video conferencing. So those are synchronous communication. Now is synchronicity, asynchronicity, these are also some of the features of interactivity, and two-way communication as well as active control. Now, where do you usually get these features? Everywhere. It's in every website. You go to study an e-commerce site, shopping like portal. You go study an institute or a Tezpur University portal, institutional that domain, anything in business domain and NGO domain, at ORZ domain, you find any websites, any site, you will study the interactive features, you find out what you will be finding out. Whether this interactivity will ensure user learning, user satisfaction, and enhance users' cognitive ability. Okay, so this is also, you take it as an assignment, so you can submit it after the exam, post exam. So, so this is when you can visit one website or even two websites. So you would study all the interactive features, and you are supposed to um, work on three hypotheses whether the interactivity or two-way communication. So you see hypothesis number one, that navigational, adaptive or functional interactivity or interactivity in the website has ensured users cognitive understanding, has ensured, second hypothesis, interactivity has ensured users that is what users ensure users learning and giving them satisfaction. So are you getting what I mean to say? First, you have to take one or two sites. If you are taking two sites, you are going to compare. Compare all the interactive features of that site on the basis of navigational, adaptive, and functional interactivity. Then also you need to find out the synchronicity, element of synchronicity, the asynchronicity. You need to work on these dimensions, many dimensions. Choices available to the users, whether it has given that active control to the users, and also ensuring responsiveness, all these factors you work on. Okay, you find out, you study. And then this narrative property also you study, whatever, to whatever extent. If you see that this centeredness cannot be studied, okay, fine. Multilinearity to certain extent can be studied, you study. Intertextuality, okay, study. Multimediality is another feature of interactivity. Number of slideshows, directed slideshows, buttons, different kind of buttons, interactive buttons are also there, and then audio stories are there, video stories are there, print plus are there. So that is a part of multimediality. You were supposed to find out of those multimediality features in that site, and you find out whether it has satisfied you. It has satisfied you. The content, that interactivity has satisfied you. It has also meet the urge to visit that particular website again and again. Whether it has also helped you to learn something. Okay, that is the conclusion. It has satisfied your urge to visit that website. It has gratified your need to visit the website, and it has also helped you to gain some of the cognitions, or having some cognitive understanding. When cognition, that means it has removed your ambiguity. It has also helped you to build an agenda. It has helped you to, develop an attitude towards a particular issue or factors. Okay, and then you say it has helped you to learn something. That will be your conclusion. You understand my assignment? Okay, understood? It will be there. I'm not yet done, because I thought of something like telling to deaf journalism people also. But anyhow, I have a class video. I'll discuss it, and whatever has been discussed will definitely be beneficial to you. And today, definitely, I'll create this